Hey, Reliability Gang, I'm Jonathan Guiney.
And I'm Brendan Russ, and this is Reliability Radio, a JLL production and ReliabilityWeb.com media brand.
All right, everybody, we're here at day 2 of MaximoWorld. Really excited for our next guest. We got David Armstrong from Cohesive. David, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you. Pleasure to be here.
So, David, for all of our listeners out there that don't know, if they're in the dark or under a rock, what Cohesive is, why don't you just give us a little bit of background of what you guys do and kind of where you fall into the organization?
Cohesive is a digital integrator owned by Bentley Systems, and we pull all their data systems together. That's our role, right? To create systems of systems. And when you think about that, that's actually what asset management is today. Right, we've got all these many different systems, but we need to bring all that information into one system so we can make decisions. So that's what we do at Cohesive, is we allow our customers, our clients, to make better decisions based on the data that we make sure that's in front of them.
That's awesome, right? I think so many people get lost. We're talking about the MAS updates and everybody that's going through it right now. People don't know where they're coming from, where they're going, what's most important to them. How do you navigate that with your clients? Like, what's most important when you start talking about getting into a MAS update?
Yeah, so we try and simplify it, right? One of the first things we need to do is understand why they want to go down in that direction. So, is it about just moving to the latest technology, moving to the cloud? They need more cyber, they need more security, or is there a compelling need to change? Right? There's many organizations that are sitting in this conference today. They're here because there's a compelling need to change. They need to make better decisions with the data that they have because, Maximo's been a fantastic tool in the work management space for a long period of time, but did it have the other capabilities that was triggering that work early days? Some say yes, some say no, but reality is there was often a lot of decisions made in disparate systems and asset performance management systems, and they would be integrated, whether that integration was hard or soft. And now with MAS, you can do most of that in one system. So there's a big benefit there. Even just removing some of the additional costs and systems that perhaps you don't need anymore, but then taking that data and dropping it into that system allows the power of the IBM solution to really come to the forefront.
No, that's great, right? And a lot of organizations out there are really trying to drive an ROI, whatever it's important to their organization. How does your application suite, how does your integrations with Maximo, how do you guys actually drive that today?
Yeah, so that's what my team does, right? We generate that ROI. So I like to break it down as simply as possible. Right. So work management is about being very efficient in how you convert information into work orders so you can repair assets. But that triggering piece on the front end is really the effectiveness piece. So I like to equate it to this simple statement. First you get smart, then you get quick. If you're not smart and how you're triggering that information, if the assets themselves are not triggering that information, are you doing the wrong work at costly, right? Overburdening, scarce trades resources with stuff that they should really is not bringing the right value back to the business. So that effectiveness piece is where the majority of the ROI comes from, right? It's about optimizing your precious labor resources, right? So making sure that they're triggering work based on the condition of the assets, defining how they're inspecting that work, putting those repeatable and reproducible frameworks together so the data actually makes sense. And in the future, that conveys itself all the way to, AI and things like that. We can actually start to see results in that domain. But again, early days, right? It's triggering the right work at the right time, but then defining when we should have those spare parts brought into the business, because typically what we see is the organizations, they're just saddled with this incredible amount of dollar value, and some of that stuff is obsolete. They don't know exactly what they need. The maintenance guys want 150 of one item, so they've got one for every day of the year. Procurement guys want nothing, right? The real solution it's a struggle. It's the real struggle, and there's hard dollars and cents on that are burdening the organization and sacrificing their margin and their P&L as a result. So we expose that. What should your inventories be based on best class? How do we trigger that? How do we trigger those procurement cycles in the work management space, in the procurement space, to optimize that. And if I look at the real return between work management and wrench time, and the triggering of the right work, the right time, the right part at the right time, it's like 10 to 1. It's a massive difference. And now with the application suite, I think we're finally at a place where we can deliver that continuous stream of information to get there.
Yeah, like you said, it's more of an enterprise asset management system than a disparate work system, right? So
it is.
I like your other comment. I don't know exactly what it was before, but starting off slow and then getting quick, right? And slow is smooth and smooth is fast, right? So as you work through that and getting to a place where you can use that data to ultimately continuously improve, I think part of the industry today, they're so quick to make changes versus sticking with something and really driving through. Like, what do you see with your clients today?
So let me feed on that. You don't have to start slow, right? But you do have to start smart, right? So the slow piece can actually be lessened, right? So we can achieve time to value much quicker with things like the reliability strategies, which is baked into the solution. We've actually, because of our deep asset performance management background, 30 years of industry experience, we've actually rebuilt all of those asset performance management flows into the monitor, into the health applications, define the leading KPIs, defining the whole criticality matrices. So then we can define what's important, what's their criticality, how important is the business, so we can start to quantify and qualify which work should we do when and where, right? So the slow piece, the reliability strategies, allows us to move at a much quicker pace to become more smart. Right? I think that's the key value that we're talking about. Now is the time to invest. Now is the time to go down that path, because what are our clients seeing, or what are we seeing with our clients' data? Typically, the master data management, the root cause data, which is their specifications, what their assets are supposed to do, it's typically lost. It's not there. It might have been on drawings or OEM manuals and that kind of stuff, and it hasn't been converted into the systems. And this is fundamental to driving, an enterprise asset management solution. You can have work orders and tasks and all the rest of that stuff, but you have to get that general ledger roll up correct. And not only that, so that's moving up the hierarchy to make sure the cash goes in the right buckets, but down lower, we're seeing assets which are constructed, asset hierarchies where they're not deep enough, right? So with reliability strategies and the new capabilities within MAS, we can actually drive that data down to where it actually changes. Now, why is that important? Every single one of our clients, they want to move it into the predict space. They want to leverage IoT. They want to get to predict. I want to hit the magic button, and lo and behold, yeah, you're going to do this on X this day and that day and all the rest of that stuff. Well, that doesn't happen without the right data construct. Right? So this is where the slow discussion that we just had, slow down, right? In order to move fast, right, you have to get it right from the beginning. Because I'm pretty sure you read the same book as me, and that tortoise always won that race. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
so slow down. Let's take a look at that data construct. Let's get it right. And let's build on that so we start to holistically and cohesively create that data envelope and then replicate that very quickly. Time to value, creating a digitalized future so the organization can move down the path that they want to go.
When you're working with a client today, what are some tidbits, some golden nuggets that you always tell that client around the integration factor, the MAS piece, whatever it is, whatever they're looking to do? How do you ground them in some best practices?
Okay, so let's best practices that we always talk about when we're looking at your information. How are you applying management of change when dynamically your business model is changing daily, weekly, yearly, right? How often have you gone back to that asset information and actually validated it? Is it under change control? Do you have requirements from a regulated industry perspective, like nuclear and utilities and oil and gas have, to make sure that that information is in control? Everybody's concerned about health and safety and environmental concerns. And, is that a buzzword, or you're actually controlling the root cause of change so you can understand when changes have happened to an asset. Let's think about that for a second. Very quickly, a firmware update can completely change the pattern and ways that an asset is working today, right? That's just a firmware push that can come over the cloud. What's the impact of that to your people? So really understanding that data at the root cause is really important, and then relationally being able to understand the impact on other assets, right? So that's part of that data construct. The other thing we often see as part of that is the level that they're maintaining within the systems is often too high. Their hierarchy is often built, you might have a line item in your hierarchy for a pump, but that reality is there's a bill of materials in there. Are you actually maintaining the pump, or are you maintaining the system, right? Is it a pump, motor combination, couplings, tanks, all the rest of that? How does that affect your business? So functionally, we should be looking at how it affects the business, not how those independent assets change, right? We need to understand how it affects the business. And that's part of that data construct. We need to say, do you have that level of detail in order to drive it forward?
Yeah, we see that all the time, right? Like you said, the level of granularity of the asset collection, where you're going to put the data, the information that's going to help you to make those informed decisions down the road at the right level within within the hierarchy. So, no, that's great stuff. David, appreciate the conversation this afternoon. Always good to talk with you and see you on this podcast. For all of our listeners out there, appreciate your time, and we'll see you guys next time.